We all know Prince, the superstar, the icon, the genius who gave us Purple Rain. But there's a whole other side to his story, a side that involves a decades-long war for creative freedom. This is the story of that fight, of a legendary vault, and how it completely changed the music business forever. So let's start with the central mystery. Why on earth would one of the most prolific musicians in history lock away thousands, literally thousands of his own songs? It sounds kind of crazy, right? But this wasn't just some eccentric artist thing. It was a calculated strategic move in a massive fight. And today, we're going to crack this thing open. Okay, so picture this. It's just days after he passed away. His estate has to call in a locksmith to physically drill into a sealed room in his Paisley Park compound. Why? Because Prince was the only one who knew the code. And what they found inside was just mind-blowing. A library of music so vast it would take years just to listen to it all. So what exactly was this vault? Was it this magical treasure chest where he kept his secret masterpieces? Or was it more like a prison for songs that the world just wasn't allowed to hear? Well, the truth is, it was kind of both. The vault was a product of his genius, for sure, but it was also a weapon in his war for independence. And let's be clear, this wasn't some kind of metaphor. We're talking about a literal, physical, climate-controlled bank vault stuffed to the ceiling with master tapes. I mean, legendary lost albums like Camille and Dream Factory, fully complete albums that he just put on a shelf. It was the only place big enough to hold his nonstop creativity. And that right there gets us to the absolute heart of this whole story. This wasn't really about Prince hiding music. It was about a fundamental collision between an artist who was living and creating in the future and a music industry that was completely stuck in the present. You see, while he was already 3 albums ahead, his record label was still trying to figure out how to sell the last one. I mean, just look at the difference in speed here. Prince was working at a pace that was just inhuman, sometimes finishing a whole song in a single day. But his label, Warner Brothers, they worked on a totally different calendar. They wanted one album, maybe every 2 years. They had to do the big promotional cycle, the tour, the whole thing. The problem was, by the time they released one album, Prince had already made 3 more. So, where do you put all that music? You put it in the vault. Now, to really get this fight, you have to understand what they were fighting over. The master recordings. Okay, think of it like this. The master is the original Mona Lisa painting. Every CD, every stream, every download, that's just a postcard of the Mona Lisa. The person who owns the original painting, the master, owns everything. They control the art, they control the future, and most importantly, they control the money. And for Prince, this became everything. And this is where the story really catches fire. Because this wasn't just some corporate squabble over contracts. For Prince, this was a deeply personal fight. A fight for his identity, for his art, for his soul. So get this, in 1992, Prince signs the biggest record deal in history at the time, $100 million. You think, wow, he's free, he can do whatever he wants. But it was the exact opposite. That contract came with so much corporate control, it was basically a pair of golden handcuffs. And that's what pushed him to declare all-out war. This quote from the man himself just cuts right to the bone. He wasn't just fighting over a business asset. He used to call his master recordings his children. And in his mind, the record label was holding his kids hostage. So yeah, this was personal. And then came this, his most shocking protest. He started showing up in public, on TV, at award shows, with the word slave written on his cheek. Now, a lot of people thought it was just a dramatic stunt, but Prince was making a very specific, very powerful point. If you create something from your own heart and mind, but someone else owns it and profits from it forever, what other word is there for? So this creates a huge problem, right? His entire global brand, the whole contract, it's all tied to the name Prince. So how in the world do you escape that? Well, his solution was an act of pure disruptive genius. He legally changed his name, not to another name, but to an unpronounceable symbol. The media had a field day with it, calling him the artist formerly known as Prince. But it wasn't an artistic whim. It was a brilliant tactical strike. I mean, think about it. How can Warner Brothers market an artist whose name you literally cannot say? He made himself a commercial nightmare to force them to the negotiating table. So what happens when you blow up the whole system to get your freedom? You don't just go back to playing by the old rules. After he finally got out of his contract in 1996, Prince decided to just smash the old way of doing things entirely and build something new from scratch. This is where he became a true pioneer.
Honestly, the man was light years ahead of everybody else. You have to remember, this is the late 90s. The music industry was terrified of the internet. They were suing their own fans. Prince, though, he saw it as total liberation. He was one of the first major artists to sell music directly from his own website, completely cutting out the record store. He created the NPG Music Club, a subscription service that was basically like Patreon, but 20 years early. He even gave away his album Musicology with every concert ticket, a move so successful it forced Billboard to change its chart rolls. He wasn't just playing the game, he was inventing a new one.
Look, this fight was a marathon, not a sprint. We're talking more than 20 years, from signing that massive deal, through all the protests, to finally becoming independent. And then, in 2014, the thing that never, ever happens in the music industry happened. Warner Brothers actually agreed to return his master recordings to him. His children were finally home. Against all odds, he had won. So, why does this story from decades ago still matter so much? Because Prince's war for ownership didn't end with him. He kicked open a door that an entire new generation of artists is now marching through. His fight is arguably more relevant today than it's ever been. You can see the echoes of his crusade everywhere. When you see Taylor Swift re-recording her entire catalog as Taylor's version, that is a move straight out of the Prince playbook. But it's so much bigger than that. It's in every artist like Kanye West or Frank Ocean fighting for ownership. It's in the huge global conversation we're having right now about artist rights and fair pay in the streaming age. Prince started this conversation, and it's still going strong. And the best part? The vault is still being opened, gifting us with these masterpieces that prove exactly what he was fighting so hard to protect. And really, this says it all. His genius wasn't just in the music he made. It was in his stubborn, brilliant, and absolute refusal to be controlled. He took all the public ridicule, he risked his career, all to make a point. And that point has become a weapon for countless artists who followed him. He wrote slave on his face so that they could write owner on their contracts, leaving all of us with a question that's more critical than ever. In our modern world of clicks and algorithms, what does it truly mean for an artist to own their art?